you all for being here. It's a wonderful crowd. And we love our summer exhibitions. And this was one of the best summers. I mean, we loved every show that we have done here this summer. I'm going to ask Carol Hill to come up. She was one of the curators for the summer exhibitions. And I thought that she worked with Janet Purcell. And I thought she'd like to say a few words. And then Janet is going to say a few words. Yeah. All right, Carol, you can come up here. You can go stand anywhere you want.
Thank you. Well, I've had this idea of doing something to honor Jan Purcell for years because she's been writing reviews for every artist in the area for how many years?
26.
26 years. And we found out that the first review that she ever did for the Times was covering an exhibit here when the museum first opened, which is wonderful. So, and many people did not know she was an artist, so this was a way to show her artwork too, and we've had really wonderful response. So, anyway, thanks, Jan.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank Joan and the museum board and Carol for inviting me. As Carol said, I've written for the Times of Trenton for 26 years, and I was here taking notes to review a show for my column one day. And Joan and Carol came in to the Malloy Gallery and said, "Would you sit down?" And I thought, oh, what have I done wrong? And you invited me to exhibit here, and I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled. And what I want to say so much is, if you haven't seen my father's pen and ink in the Malloy Gallery, please go see it. He's deceased now. And he was a wonderful artist, and he was not able to pursue his art because he had a wife and 2 children to support. But he did win first prize in 1924 at the New Jersey State Fair, and so he was really good. And his drawing, his pen and ink in there, is about immigrants. And there's a Helen Keller quote up at the top that said, "They have built great cities, but they don't have a roof over their own heads." And he was the son of an immigrant. He grew up on Jersey Street in Trenton, and I grew up on Genesee Street in Trenton. So to have us both here in the Trenton City Museum just meant so much to me, and I want to thank you. Thank you, Carol.
I just put a little words down. It's going to be kind of stream of consciousness the way I always do. But I want to say something about the museum. This is such a wonderful place, and I know many of you have had wonderful memories here and wonderful exhibits here. Mel wrote this, and it tells you a bit about how he feels about the museum and how we all feel. In 1979, I had a show of my paintings in one of the galleries on the 2nd floor of the Trenton City Museum. The exhibition was part of a 4-man show sponsored by TAWA, the Trenton Artist Workshop Association. Each artist had a room of his or her work. The art critic Peter, how do you say his name?
Yeah.
The New York Times reviewed the show. He said of Leipzig's work, his sense of mysterious emotional tensions strongly characterized ordinary people, making him perhaps the Chekhov of Trenton. And Mel said that review helped launch my career, and for that I'm grateful for the Trenton City Museum. And we're very grateful, Mel, for all the wonderful things that you've done for us and for the city of Trenton. So, I don't know. I knew Mel's work for many years before I met Mel because I was a frequent in the art business, the art world, and I went to Garraway Hennock for years, so I knew Mel's work. But then I began to hear about it and see it here in Trenton. And Joe Gersak, who will be speaking in a minute, I went to a studio for an event, an exhibition we were doing here. He began to talk about his experience sitting for Mel, and I just man, I really couldn't believe it. It was one of the most interesting, exciting things that I had listened to in a while. So I was very anxious to meet you, Mel. And Mel and I have had some great times. I'm really sorry that I didn't meet you years ago, because we would have been having so much fun years ago. So I just wanted to talk about Trenton. I have so many friends from Trenton, and they always say, oh, I love Trenton, I love Trenton, I love Trenton. I say, oh, I believe you if you're telling me you love Trenton. Let's go to Trenton. Can you And they would take me around. But I think when I came here, I got to understand what it was. It's not that building or this building or the other building. It's a spirit that lives here that I am so sure of just by being here. I mean, it's very emotional. I live on the other side of the river, and I can't get that spirit there. So I keep looking for it after I've been here. I just can't catch it there. And I'm good at catching things, but it's just not there. And I thought with your paintings now, this is such a big deal. You have caught the thing and the spirit that they're talking about in the paintings. You took Trenton and the people of Trenton, and you saved them in this period for all time. It's a very big deal. So thank you for that. So I was in here with someone that said to me, I don't know. I don't think that I could live with a portrait of somebody else. I just don't know. And this is really quite a pedestrian and unsophisticated thought. I thought to myself, well, I guess then you wouldn't have bought the maid, the portrait of the maid who became the artist helper that became the girl with the pearl earring. So that would not be hanging on your wall, but it would have certainly been hanging on the walls of many other people had they had the opportunity. After I had that thought, I went to look at the 10 most important paintings in the history of art. Now it's arbitrary, but pretty much everybody picked the same ones. 7 or 8 were portraits. So we had been looking at portraits and realism and loving it for years and years. And I personally believe nothing goes out of style. A great painting is timeless. You love it forever. You love it from the first moment you see it, and you love it forever. So then Mel said that he was going to come to the Trenton Museum and paint us. So when he set it up, I had another pedestrian thought. He put me in the fat spot. That is what I thought. I said, why did he put me there? I'm always taking myself out of that spot in every picture. Oh, don't put me in the fat spot. So I got the fat spot. I watched him as he painted Carol, Carolyn, and I miss Jimmy, but I watched that, and it was really fabulous to watch. And then when he did me, I was able to watch as he was painting. And it was just, I didn't want to look, but I did. And it was the most unbelievable thing when it was over, because when I got up and I looked at it, and I don't know quite what this feeling was, but it was definitely a visceral feeling, and I thought there was something you captured about me now. I don't know what it is, but it was very moving at that moment for me. So, what can I say? It's been so much fun, and there's a lot more fun to come. And we're going to ask people now, it's completely informal. I'm just going to pick you at random. Most of you know who you are, so there aren't going to be any surprises to come up. And just speak a little bit about your experience with Mel. I'm going to start with Joe Gersak, because you're the person that first told me all about Mel from your point of view. So.
I knew about Mell Leipzig. I never trained under him, but I heard all about this fella, and then I started becoming aware of his work, and I really started seeing a lot of his work in different places. And then I met him because I did a couple lectures at the college, and then I said to him one day after we became friends, I said, I really would like to do a painting of you, and you do a painting of me. And so he said, yeah, that sounds cool. So he came over to my house, and I said, well, we'll just paint each other at the same time. And he said, well, I don't want to just paint you, I want to paint your family. So I said, good luck with that. Because I've been painting for years, and I said, well, they're not going to sit for you. And he said, can you give me like 15 minutes with them? And so I stayed in the studio, and he went in the house. He introduced himself to my family, and he was in there for a while. Then he comes out, then he says, well, they're going to paint. They're going to sit for me, and I'm going to paint them. I said, wait a minute, how did you do that? He goes, well, you're cheap. I paid $25 an hour. They all signed up. And I'm like, there you go. This was the beginning of it. So I had no idea what I was in for. And the more I think about it now, this man sitting next to me is actually not a New Jersey important artist. He's a national treasure, and he will go down in history as a national treasure. So we're very fortunate, first of all, to have him here. And I was really blessed as an artist to spend every Monday night with him for 9 months. He would come every Monday night, and we started the process. And he said, well, I'm going to sit for you first. And I said, okay. So I was very enthusiastic because I wanted to do it. And he sat there. He's the worst sitter. I mean, you can't, this guy is terrible. He's a great painter, but he doesn't want to sit. So, but the whole time, I did I'm going to show you some paintings I did of him. I did 9 paintings. It wasn't no competition, but he's working on this big painting. I'm working on little paintings. So I did 9 of them over the course of the time that he did the big painting. And I did a lot of different versions. Some of them are in the painting. I brought them. But he was sitting there, and he was posing for me the best he could. And I noticed something about him that was very intriguing. It's not always what artists tell you about themselves. It's about the things that you observe about them. Maybe by why they're working, how they're thinking. Those are the little gems I love. His eyes were roving around the studio constantly, where he was actually figuring out that painting before he even started it. I could tell his mind was already recording what he was going to do, which I found pretty amazing. And then I worked on my painting, then he started working on his painting. He rapidly drew it in. This is how I come to know that he did that while I was painting him, because he had it figured out. There was no delay in laying it out because he had 3 sessions. He was sitting there, he knew where he was going with it. So Joan asked me to talk about him in a quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but basically what I like to say is Mel is very unique. You have a subject matter that many artists can paint scenes, but what he does interesting is he bends the reality to what he wants it. So I always say this to my students: use it as a starting point, but the creativity is being able to bend it into different directions, as he so masterfully did in the painting. So there were a lot of times where we had really great conversations during we were both painting in there. Sometimes I wasn't painting him, I was working on another painting, but he was sharing all his knowledge about history. We were going back and forth, and that was a very memorable experience for me, because we were going over about a lot of different things about artists from history, and he's a wealth of knowledge. So it was like not just an experience of painting each other. He actually he might be, he's very humble, but he mentored me during that time because his memory is fascinating. He has the ability to remember everything in the room. I don't know how he does it. It kind of freaks me out. But he would come in different weeks and he'd spot something that new that I was working on, or if a painting changed. And I was like, I would go into the house and I would say to my wife, I don't know how he does that. He remembers everything that's going on. And I don't know how he really did that, but one day was very special to me because I never trained under him, but I was having a problem with a painting I was working on. And I didn't tell him I had a problem with it. I had it on the floor and he looked at that painting, he really liked it, but he said that this is a really terrific painting. It's very complimentary, which made me feel good every time. But he said, do you have a newspaper? So he went out, I went in the house to get a newspaper. I didn't know what the heck he was gonna do. But he was thumbing through the newspaper and he looked for the right value, light and dark tone, and he ripped out a piece and he subdued an area of my painting that was actually the problem. And it instantly changed the painting. It elevated the painting. And I was really struck by that because I had a lot of teachers coming up as an artist and I've never seen anybody do something like that. And it really was quite impressive feeling to see that happen before me. So I really historically will never forget that whole painting experience. And I was looking, but I didn't bring it, but I kept the palette that he did, when he worked on that painting as well, because I wanted that as a memory of it. But then I did these paintings of him. The first painting, this is pretty intense, and he was sitting there for 3 sessions for this. So I wanted to do something like artists of the past, Monet and Sargent got together, and they gave always artists, when they painted together and they painted each other, they always give a nod to the other artists. So I wanted to bring some flavor of his painting in this. And now that I look at it, I think he did that as well to me. I don't know if he did it intentionally, but the brush marks on the reflection on the top are kind of open brush strokes like I have in this painting, which I thought was interesting. I just realized that now. But this was the first painting, and that was 3 sessions. And then I did, like I told you, the other paintings. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'll show you. And in doing them, I think I captured different spirits of different ways he was thinking at the time, or I don't know if you remember some of these, but I did different ones, and I see, you know, like we all have different moments. A lot of different expressions of him. And like I said, he's working on the big painting. I'm working on the little one. This was not in the same time. This was afterwards, but I did another painting of him at a different point, so it's kind of not related directly. But these are, and I played around with a lot of different ideas, you know, as he was painting, trying to paint my family. And I really like this one because I think it captures him when he's really deep in thought, when he's concentrating on his paintings. I saw that many times in him. And this one, he was not really happy to be photographed because I did a photograph of this and then do a painting of it. But listen, it's about humanness, right? So, and then this is the one in the painting as well. That's in the painting, and he just knocked them in like nothing. But I like to do interiors like he does, so I put him painting in an interior. And then this was a bigger version. And this is in acrylic. Some of them are in oil, but this is in acrylic. So anyway.
Did Mel see these before?
What?
Is this the first time Mel is seeing them?
No, he's seen. He's
Yeah.
seen. But yeah, so that's basically my experience. There's so much. I mean, I could go on for a long time about it, but just touching on it was a lot of fun to have that shared experience with him, and I'm very, very grateful for it. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. So, thank you.
I'm going to ask Richard Owen. I want to point out that he's wearing the outfit that was in the painting. We're time together, and I've also asked him to fill you in on some of the new things he's doing. So, before or after he speaks. About now.
Got to affect the pose. Someplace well, this painting came about really thanks to the interaction between Mel and Dan Aubrey, who is also in the paint. Dan regrets that he can't be here. He had a commitment in upstate New York, and I wouldn't be surprised if he were to drive in any moment now from upstate. But in any case, he's sorry he can't be here. But Dan's and Janet, an arts writer, Dan, an arts writer. I don't think Dan can paint quite as well as he can write. Not everybody has the multi-talent, but Dan definitely can interact with people, and he put this this whole group together. This is not the first time somebody has been attracted to our office because of its clutter. I read someplace that Mel loves clutter, and Pride Brown, who's a pretty well-known and accomplished photographer in Princeton, and ran a photo studio in Princeton for many years, prided herself on black and white portraits of families, saw our office once and said, I would like to take a portrait of you in your office. I'm going to take a photograph. And I said, no, Pride, the office is a mess. You can't do it. I said, no, I can make it work. I'm sure I can. So she came, and we didn't spend nearly as much time as we spent with Mel, but we spent quite a while with Pride. Pride took hundreds of photographs. And I said, well, I'll be interested in seeing this. I never did, because she came to me later and said, you were right, the photograph did not work. We just couldn't make it work. And I note that Mel has made the point that he never works from photographs. And that may be a relationship there between your not working with photographs and the fact that a photographer came on and tried to capture this and just failed in her own mind to do it. Quickly, this painting to me speaks to two different levels. One is that he captures the moment, as you see in so many of these paintings around here. There's obviously been a lot going on. He comes in and captures the moment, and yet you sense from the painting that something's about to change, and you know, you've got the feeling that there's something about to change, about to happen, and Mel has been there to capture that one instant before whatever that is happens, and that is a real art. The other thing it says to me on another level is it's kind of a metaphor for the newspaper business. The clutter that you see and all the little things that are messed up on desks and everything else is the way that we all used to approach the newspaper business. We felt we were looking at clutter, we were attracted to the thing that was out of order. Why is it out of order? And then we would dig in and try to capture that moment and find out what really was all behind it. And I think all too often today, as journalism, and particularly community journalism, declines, you're seeing less and less of that digging. And I can now say safely that you would not be able to paint this picture again.
We don't have the office anymore.
That we don't have that office, and we don't have that clutter either. We are like the rest of journalism. We're kind of going into a space where the neater your desk is, the more efficient you are. You know, if there's something that's out of order in the real world, do we really want to report on that? Maybe that's the result of a troublemaker. That's going to be awkward. Why don't we take the neat and orderly approach? And this is a product of our times and the decline of community journalism. And on one final note, if this were to hang at our new office, it could be turned into a vertical now very easily. All they'd have to do in this cutthroat world of modern journalism is just come in and hack poor Lynn Miller out. She's not with us anymore, replaced by a part-time person, and then get rid of this guy. And he's not with us anymore either. You know, I left and was not replaced. So, you know, this is the sign of contraction in our business. And you wouldn't find all that wonderful clutter either. So I'm really indebted and grateful that Mel came and spent the time that he did with us, because he's truly captured a moment, and it's not likely to be reproduced anytime soon. So thank you, Mel, and thanks everyone.
Give them a little update on what you're doing now.
Oh yeah, thank you, John. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm now stepped down from my role after 35 years at US One newspaper, and I'm now writing about urbanism and placemaking. I've got a website where I put my writing. It's called ryanreports.com, and concerned with things like what can be done to turn Trenton around. And this is something that I've written about on a number of occasions. And Trenton has so much going for it, and it has this wonderful compact nature to it, and it also has wonderful clutter and a wonderful sense of an urban disorder that we all find today appealing, and also a sign of authenticity. So there's plenty of spots left for Mel to work, and for me as well. So that's what's happening. Thank you, John.
So I'm doing the paintings in this room. So we're going to go to Jeffrey Dorfman.
Okay, that's me. That's my wife, Tracy. We're over here in Mill Hill. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So we've been here for, well, since I think 93. And originally from Manhattan. And when I first got here, I would speak to people sometimes at social, you know. And people would say, so what do you do? And I'd say, well, I'm a painter. They say, oh, you know Mel? I go, no, who's Mel? And they say, Mell Leipzig. I said, no. So after about the third or fourth time, you know, I realized that there's somebody in central New Jersey called Mell Leipzig who's quite big, but I hadn't met him. And then I don't know how we met. I think it was John Narr. John Narr, who's no longer with us, the photographer. And he had a cousin, Harry Narr, who ran the art program in Ryder. And so he was kind of putting us together. So then I thought, well, Tracy and me are very, we're not antisocial exactly, but we can kind of, you know, take them or leave them when it comes to people, you know. We're perfectly okay, you know, going into the studio and painting, and that's pretty much our life. But we did have everybody over that for one night, and Harry and Mel and and Harry's wife, Barbara. And it was great because, you know, artists, well, most of the artists I know, and that's pretty much who I know, are artists. And I've tried to keep in touch with everybody back in New York. And we're kind of a certain way, we're kind of the kid who kind of could have gone out to play, but would be just as happy staying, you know, inside and working on something as going out and playing ball. And I was certainly that kid. So that's what I mean. It's not like we're antisocial, but we can be alone and we're perfectly fine with it. And so Mel, when I finally did meet Mel, I was struck by how much of a people person he was, and how art, rather than being a kind of a refuge, was a kind of an entranceway to other people's lives. And he would go into other people's lives, and through using painting, really, and being, and that was like an avenue in a way, because I think for him, painting and people go together, which is maybe the definition of a portrait painter. See, I'm an abstract artist, and so I have a very different take on things. You see, for instance, if I have a student, I still am doing a little bit of teaching at the university in Staten Island, and you know, I make the point that if you think the Mona Lisa is a likeness, how the hell would you know? Or the girl with the pearl earring, or, you know, take any classical portrait. We have no way of knowing whether it would look like them, and we could care less, you see, because you really look, once you start looking at something as a painting, as a work of art, then you start seeing it for its own qualities, independent of whether it actually looked like the person or not. And the thing that I noticed about Mel, when I saw a show of his work, and he had paintings from maybe 40 years ago, is that they were very scrupulously worked on for a very long time. I guess I would call it a kind of, you know, intensely realistic, moment in time kind of painting. And here, if you just took my painting the painting of me as an example, I don't have a piano in my studio. That's just stupid, right? But that's not the point. The point is he knows I play, and you know that when I was 17, I got into. We all went to Cooper, by the way. He went to Cooper. John, in fact, they went to Cooper. There's a little bit of a Cooper Union, you know, which was like a free school. But I also got into Juilliard. So I'm probably the only person in the history of the world that got into both of them. But I had to choose, and my dad said, well, Cooper Union is free. And as far as he was concerned, that settled it, you know. But it was a good decision because Juilliard was a virtuosity school. It probably still is. And the idea of repeating things and perfecting them so that under pressure you can survive. And you know, what you do in the Olympics, you know, you've got 2 minutes to perform and it's got to be perfect, otherwise that's it. So there goes 10 years of your life if you don't do those 2 minutes right. And I think that's just a ridiculous way to live. So actually I made a very good decision by going to Cooper. But one of the problems with that, well, I don't want to get into that. That's about me so much. So that's one point that I want to say about Mel, and is that it's kind of in the humanistic tradition of opening yourself, also finding a niche. You know, an artist is always looking for a niche in a community, whether it's a community like Trenton or whether it's a community like New York, or even like like a country or a national. but you know, trying to find a place for yourself, you see, because it's not like you have the respect of a traditional profession like a doctor or a lawyer, where you're performing a service of a practical nature, and you know, and you're doing something that is helping people with their lives. We're really not that kind of person. We're like a little bit like hothouse flowers, you know. And so trying to find a place, let's see if I can put this, you know, is very difficult for a lot of us. And so Mel was really somebody I had never met before, who actually succeeded in a way that no one else I know who's an artist has been able to do. And so that was fascinating, and is fascinating aspect of Mel for me. Most of the artists I know in New York are kind of milder versions of me, you know. but we are all that boy who basic, or girl who's happy in their own room. You know, it's not, you know, we can go out to play, but we just as soon not, you know, it's perfectly okay. So in a way, and you know, artists have always had to find niches for themselves, you know, in the history of art. And they've always had to go through power sources, you know, the church or the duke or the court. Musicians too, same thing. And then when those things disappeared, and also when photography came in, you know, which took the documentary nature of the portrait onto a mechanical level, and you know, like someone earlier said, you know, who wants to sit for, you know, for a painter when a photographer can come in and take care of things in a half, and you know, just set up and shoot it. So so we lost that niche that was something that, you know, we could work through the power bases of the society, and so we're kind of drifting out there, and Mel made a niche for himself, you know. He did it, and he didn't have to do it through the church and the state and all that stuff, and making sure that wealthy people like you. As a matter of fact, someone already mentioned it, so I don't have to mention it. He pays you to pose, which is backwards, right? It's supposed to be the other way around. But Mel he loves art, and when you talk to him, you know, somebody like me who comes from a very, very different tradition we can talk about art all for hours. And which means he loves it. And like I tell my students, none of whom are going to be artists, I'm pretty sure, there's only two reasons to do anything in this world, and that's love or money. Those are the only two reasons to do anything. And I can't tell a student that, oh, you're going to be able to make money with what I show you, you know. But I'm going to show you something, and maybe you'll fall in love with it. And if you fall in love with it and want to devote your life to it, then you're an artist. Whether you're a good artist or bad artist, you're an artist, you know. And Mel's an artist, and we love it. The word amateur, by the way, comes from amatore, a lover. It doesn't mean that you're inept. It means that you do it out of love. See, whereas a professional is doing it for the money. There's nothing whatsoever to do with quality. You know? And I don't know. I've known even some famous artists. They don't make as much as you think they do. You know, they may sell a painting for $30,000 or $40,000. Well, now millions, but a lot of those. But they may sell something for $40,000, $50,000, but they sold one that year, or maybe two, and then the dealer takes half. So they're making less than your dentist does. See, although you may be reading about them in a magazine, doesn't mean that they're, you know. So anyway, those are the things I wanted to say about Mel. He's a unique individual. I don't think I've ever met anyone quite like Mel. All right? And that's, I could say I could go on, but there's other people here, so that's it.
So we're going to move a little bit away from the art, and we're going to ask Nicole to come up and speak. The painting out in the, I don't like to use the word hallway, but out in the atrium is at Nicole's wedding. Nicole was actually hard to track down, but finally we found her, and she's here. She's going to talk a little bit about the portrait.
All right. So first I want to say I'm not a painter. I'm far from that. We are musicians though. Met Mel 13 years ago. The West Trenton Post Office. I know some people in here know me from the West Trenton Post Office. Met Mel there because he would come to me and me only to get his stamps to mail his flyers. So he came in a couple times and he came in and he says, I want to paint you. I said, well, where? When? He says, right where you're at, while you're working, da, da, da. So, it's a lot of hoops you have to go through for that to happen at the post office, for him to sit in the lobby and paint. So we got married. So we're moving forward, got married. So he comes in, he says, I got it. I'm going to paint you and your husband a portrait of you in your wedding gown and him in his tux. I was like, okay. So when are we going to do this? He says, you just let me know. You go and order the tux and we'll do what we have to do. We set for 3 different times at our house, in our living room. You see the portrait there. It's a mirror. It's a mirror that we're sitting in front of, and he's sitting in our empty living room because at the time we just moved in, we didn't have furniture. So 3 settings at 3 hours apiece, which was a lot with the wedding gown on, but it was fun. And again, Mel's generous person that he is, he says, just rip the tux, I'll take care of everything. This is your wedding present from me. And oh my, this is wonderful, it's a great gift. This is probably one of the best gifts we had because not only did we didn't know that it was here, but we were in Bedminster with this portrait. Now we're here in Trenton, where I'm from, which is exciting for me. Almost brought tears to my eyes when a young lady from another office called me and told me Joan was trying to get in touch with me. I'm like, who's that? And so we finally talked, and now I'm here. Mel, I thank you. I can't thank you enough. I do miss you from the West Trenton Post Office. I didn't retire yet, but I do plan to retire in the next 5 years because I'm with 32 years now. But I will miss you coming in buying stamps from me, and I have missed you. But my phone number's in your phone. So that's what I told Joan. So that portrait means a lot, and I gotta say this, and I don't know if I'm getting in trouble for saying it. I thought I had the only one, but I guess I don't because that's in my living room. It's in our living room, and we walk in and we see it every day, and it brightens us up because it's absolutely beautiful. And every detail in that photo is Mel's vision. So Mel did us, and then he says, I'm not coming back. I have an idea. I'm going to go to Cape Cod. He went to Cape Cod to do the scenery, the garden scene. He wanted to put us in the garden. Of course, there wasn't a garden in the living room, but he visioned garden, and that's what he went to Cape Cod to finish the portrait. And I thank you so much for having us. And you have my number. If you need to get in touch with me, you feel free to call me anytime, and I'll be there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to speak, Dallas. So you all know, I mean, most of you know Dallas. I think she does a really great painter. You've seen her in the community. You know her work, and it was a great pleasure to meet her.
Well, my talk will be a little different because I was one of the fortunate people that had Mel as my professor. And the first time I ever saw him was at Trenton Junior when the college was just being built and was almost finished. And they had different art professors that were going to be there. And for some reason, I didn't know Mel or anything about him other than he was the art teacher, which they said. And I just prayed. There was something about him I just instantly liked, and I said, oh, I hope I get Mel, I hope I get Mel, because you didn't know, you couldn't pick your professor, when you signed up for the course, you got who you got. So I was just so happy to have Mel, and I've always considered Mel over the years the father of us all, the students, because he never played favorites. He listened to every student and their problems. He always helped them. He was never unpleasant like another professor we know there. Was a nightmare, and we were glad to see him go west. And but everybody who knows Mel loves Mel, and all the students always loved Mel. I mean, no, you just did. You just loved him to death. He's just been such a wonderful man. So I just want to tell you my experience, because I was asked to talk about what it was like to have Mel come and paint you at your home. So he pulled up in his big white van, and first of all, I was so honored and thrilled that he wanted to do a painting of me and my two sons. So he pulled up in his big white van and came in the house, and he wanted to walk around the house first to kind of select where he would like to paint, what room he would like to paint in. And I did show him my studio. I said, no, he wouldn't have any room in there. There was so much stuff. But anyway, he picked my den, and I could see why, because he loves a lot of stuff in your room. And I have a bookcase from ceiling to floor, and paintings and things like that, as you can see in there. So he comes in, and he did walk around, and then he selected that. And let's see, I'm wondering the whole time, how is he going to paint all those books? There's so many of them. I would say, what do you think, 500 or 1,000? Yeah. And so then he went out to his van and started to bring in all his art supplies. So I'm going to refer here to this. And he chose the recliner, which is at the end of the room, to sit in. He sets up a little table. He puts his palette on it, but he's amazing how, he sometimes seems like a messy guy, the way he throws his paint around and everything, but not at all. He was very contained in his area, and then he pulled out his palette, and he was going to set up the colors, and he said, I only work in 4 colors now, Dallas. You can mix these colors and get any color you want, which is true. And he doesn't use black. It was red, yellow, and green. Let me see what, that was it, I think, right, Mel? The 3 colors?
Red, yellow, and blue.
And blue,
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So he talked about it and how wonderful it was. He said, you don't need all those colors, you can just mix these and you'll get whatever color you want. And I have always kind of mixed colors too, but still I didn't realize what extent you could. So he gets out his tubes and he really puts big blobs of paint, and I'm one of these people. I put a little here and there. I'm very frugal, I guess, about it, and I figure they're just going to dry out, so I'll just put how much I want. But he just loads his palette with all all the paints, you know, and they're all juicy, and his brushes, he's mixing them up. He's a joy to watch to paint because he knows what he's doing, and he's got his colors going and putting them there up on the canvas, and it's just wonderful. So, what was I going to say? I'll get over here. All right. So he told me, I want you to sit in that chair, and I don't want you to move, and I don't want you to smile. And I tried to, I didn't want to look so stern, so I would try to go, just a little one. And I looked towards the couch where he was planning on having my sons come another time. And I didn't really move at all. I think I stayed pretty steady in the chair. And he amazed me at how quickly he works. Years ago, he used to do beautiful drawings before he did the painting, right? Mel, you used to do those gorgeous, and I said, oh, good, maybe I can buy the drawing. He said, I don't do those anymore, Dallas. I just go right to the canvas, and he did. He sketched it all out on the canvas very quickly, and I found it almost hard to believe, since it takes me about 3 months to do anything. All my canvases take 3 to 6 months, it seems, depending on the size, but it takes me very long. He's, of course, very sure of himself, and wait a minute, what did I have? He's very sure of himself, and I guess he should be. I think he was born with a brush in his hand, and he does, you know, when you do something every day, all the time, most of your adult life, it's just so easy for you, you know. When you stay at something, your trade becomes easier as time goes on, and he was just amazing. I couldn't believe how much he got done in such a short time, you know. So he spent about 3 or 4 hours with me. Never put his brush down except to take a sip of beer, which I had offered a soft drink or a beer, and I was surprised he had a beer. But the other thing he did, and has always done as long as I've known him, is always encouraged me to paint. Are you painting, Dallas? Are you painting? No, you gotta paint, you know. And then again, he did that, and he always offered me such good advice, and has just been an absolutely wonderful, wonderful man. And he was a father of us all at the Mercer County Community College. Everybody loved him, and we still do.
Most of you, I know everybody knows everybody, so I give you their names. I can say a few things. Marge will introduce herself and tell you the story. Painting is a very large painting set against the wall, artifacts gallery.
I met Mel when I was 17. He was my first painting teacher, and as part of the class, he would come to your home to see your studio. You had to have a studio, a special, separate room, and he would go to every student's house to see their studio. Then flash forward to 1997, I had my own frame shop in Trenton. My parents worked with me, and my husband was a teacher. And Mel said, I want to do a painting of the shop. So you'll see the painting of the frame shop. He painted every magnet on the cash register, every picture, every molding sample. He was in there for months. We just opened the door, let him in, he'd paint all day long. Then he'd come the next week and he'd say, you sold the magnet. And he'd say, I'm good luck for you, because things that I paint then sell. He thought it was very, very good luck. So we've been friends for a long, long time, and I appreciate his enthusiasm and his expertise, and he's been just a wonderful man and a wonderful teacher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie, did I lose three people speak is going to be like, I can say this could be really boring. And I don't think it's going to be boring, but we'll take our chances. And then as we called a few people, people started to say, well, I want to talk. I'd like to talk. And so I thought, oh, okay. Who knows what they're going to say? Charlie? Well, while we're waiting for Charlie, Peter Wagner and Eric Schultz could not be here. But Peter sent something for me to read. And this goes to what it's like to pose for Mel. When Mel asked me to sit for the painting, I really didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe it would be like sitting in a barber's chair where we would chat endlessly while he was painting. I soon realized that after numerous replies of that's nice, that Mel really needed to focus on the task of painting, not talking necessarily. Sitting is not one of my best attributes, especially when sitting in my own garden looking at the weeds. I should have pulled last week. After brushing of a bug that was climbing up my calf, Mel scolded me and told me not to move. It took all of my inner strength to resist, at least, looking down to see which bugs were enjoying free reign on my legs. I'm not sure how many feasted on me for the next 4 hours. The heat. Mel picked one of the hottest days of the summer to paint. He looked cool as a cucumber in one of his one-piece painting overalls, but I was melting like a crayon in the sun, and probably dehydrated too. Some observers have noticed that I look grumpy in the painting. I guess Mel captured that. But what I found fascinating was Mel's concentration, able to focus so intensely as to be painting on an island in my driveway, unaware or possibly ignoring the neighbors and cars that slowed to see what he was doing. What also amazed me was how we could make an endless combination of color by using only 4 paint colors. He started the painting with what looked like random brushstrokes, and by the end of it was me sitting in my garden, just like he had seen it. It was an honor to sit for a painting by Mel, and an honor to be immortalized in one of his paintings. Mel, you're one hell of a neighbor. So, Charlie.
Hi, Mel. Hi, everybody. My name's Charlie Frick. I practice photography and writing, and for many years I made my living as a graphic artist doing newspapers and magazines and album covers. Full disclosure, Mel's longtime dealer, his gallerist, is my cousin George of Gallery Hannock. So that's how I know Mel and how I've come to be here today. Shout out to Gallery Hannock, 555 West 25th Street in the Chelsea District. If you happen to be in New York, stop by. About 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big party for my cousin who was celebrating 50 years in the art business as a dealer. And there was a dinner, and Mel was there, a lot of artists, and I was there, and my cousin Tony was a painter. I come from a family of artists. And so I'm there with my cousin Tony, and we're sitting at the end of one of the tables, and I'm sitting next to Mel. And it was a lovely evening, and I think around the 2nd or 3rd glass of Merlot, Mel turns to me and he goes, "You have a very interesting face. I should paint you." To which I turned to Mel and I said, "Well, okay, whatever." And I didn't think anything of it. I don't know, a couple of months, maybe 6, 8 months later, I get a call from Cheryl, who's the gallery manager for my cousin, and she said, "Oh, is it okay if I give Mel your phone number?" I said, "Well, of course." He's, I photograph the openings at my cousin's gallery. That's one of the things that I do. So I was familiar with Mel and his family and photographed him and his openings and the other artists. So I knew Mel. He's part of the team, you know. So I get Mel on the phone. He says, "Well, I want to paint you, and how about we meet?" I said, "Okay, whatever." So Mel decided that he was going to paint me at my cousin's gallery. So we meet in March, maybe 3 years ago?
2 years.
2 or 3 years ago. Terribly rainy day. Mel comes in and, and he said, I want you to bring some of your photographs with you. I said, "Okay, which photographs?" I mean, I've been photographing since I'm in my 20s. For many years, I had made my living as a rock and roll photographer, covering the music scene in Jersey and New York. And so I brought a stack of images. And so Mel comes in, I help him carry the canvas in, and we set up, and it was a quiet day in the gallery. And I said, well, all right, what do you want me to do? He says, well, stand against that wall. And it's a blank wall. And by the way, that painting is right outside. It was a blank wall. And I had brought my 2 cameras, my big camera and this little one, and I was just being myself and holding the cameras I have a tendency to do. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? He says, well, just stand there. So I'm in pretty good shape. I can stand still for quite a while. So Mel sets up, and there were people coming in the gallery, and you know the business is going on, and Mel's like painting while he's doing whatever, and I couldn't see the canvas, and he's like cackling away. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is fantastic, and whatever. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was really resisting the urge to come around and look. Oh, do you need a break? No, I don't need a break. I stand on my feet all day, and so the first session, actually, there was only one session that he painted me. He just put me in the image on the canvas, and the rest of it he just sketched in a couple of squares. I think I stood for about 6 hours that day. Until they said, all right, we got to close, why don't you guys leave? You know, so we went and we had a little bite to eat, and we were chatting and stuff, and I was having a great time, and Mel just seemed to be very happy, you know. And I had given him a stack of black and white images of rock stars, and that was it. I thought nothing of it, and I was like, okay, that was another adventure. And beginning of the summer, my cousin calls me and he says, oh, Mel called. He wants us to come down. He finished your painting. I said, oh, I forgot about that. So I think it was a Sunday or a Saturday. My cousin and his wife and I, we drive to Mel's house and walk in, and sure enough, there's this painting of me and set in the gallery, and 3 of my images from 1975, 2 of Bruce Springsteen and 1 of Deborah Harry, Blondie, and all of the other stuff around the gallery. Now, I know the puzzle, Mel knows the puzzle, but someone looking at that painting wouldn't understand. To me, it's like a Mobius strip, like different layers of reality folded in ways that you don't expect. So in other words, I was standing against a wall, and behind me now are 3 of the images that I photographed from 40 years ago. Over my shoulder is a portrait of a man named Gregory, who's one of the gallery assistants, works for my cousin, who's a buddy of Mel's. Mel had painted his portrait that had hung in the gallery, and now is hanging over my shoulder. The desk is turned around. I mean, it's a visual puzzle, and I you know, I stood there looking, and I was like, and I remember you saying to me, it's like, I didn't know how I was going to make this work. I didn't know. Oh, and Mel's arm and the paintbrush are in the corner of the. So it's like in the very little corner, you'll see it. Anyways, so for me as a photographer and as a visual artist, I just find it fascinating and interesting how these different views and levels of reality have been sort of folded in ways that are unexpected. A lot of these other images appear to be sort of straight on, but that one, as I said, it's different rooms of the gallery now assembled into one sort of panoramic and flat plane, and it's to me, it's very entertaining. Anyways, but I 2 of the things that I did want to say. One was I had just a lovely time, you know, hanging out with you. We were chatting, and he would laugh. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is great. I'm like, I can stand still as good as the next guy, you know. And, but I did not expect. So seeing myself in the guise of my identity as an artist and as a photographer with work that I had done as a young man in my 20s, there's this kind of collapse of, not just of time, but for me in the painting, it's a collapse of space. Because who I am in the portrait is from 2 years ago. The work is from 40 years ago. And when I look at it and when I think about it, it's like, well, there's a representation of the artist that I was, and here's the representation of who I am now. And it's not disorienting, but for me, the painting frees the bonds of time and space. I'm able to go forward and backwards in looking at it. And the other thing too is I'm coming into a period of myself as an artist, as a photographer, where I've been sort of woodshedding for 10 years. I just haven't been out there. I've been working, but I have not presented anything. And by seeing this image and something in it kind of just shifted and pushed me forward. And it's like, well, there I am. I'm now hanging on a wall. The world knows I'm a photographer. I guess I better step up and get my work out there. So I really, that's an unintended consequence and benefit for me. And the other thing is I just love spending time with him and hanging out. And every time he comes to the gallery, literally all of the gallery workers, I don't have to tell people, no, everybody says, oh, Mel's here, wee. It's like, Mel's here, oh, wee. I think that's it. And thanks. Thanks, buddy.
Did I miss anybody? There might be a neighbor that was here.
I painted John.
John?
Not from the show, but
Well, let me say that. Actually, I want.
And you're also allowed to make a pitch for next Saturday.
Well, I'm John Clark. I'm an architect in town here. And in the mid-1970s, I was the director of planning and development for the city of Trenton, and I worked for Arthur Holland. And at that time, we had an idea that this building should not be a monkey zoo, whatever it was, that it ought to be a gallery. And this is the quintessential idea. You couldn't have a better mix of a famous painter identified with Trenton to be showing in this building. It's just serendipity. And just on a personal note, one of the things that in the many communities that Mel has infiltrated, one of the communities he's infiltrated is the architects. So he's painted a whole retinue of architects, some very famous, some not so so famous like us. But it is a great for all the architects who have been that Mel has painted. It's a great honor, and he finds a great way of finding an insight about the person. And I think the painting of Tom Malloy is just a wonderful illustration of that. Because if you knew Tom, his essence is in that painting.
Thank you. John, you get to pitch next Sunday afternoon.
Yes, and a week from the next exhibit is going to be a retrospective of the New Jersey Photoform photographers, and we are going to hopefully all come back and see those
Next Sunday?
next Sunday.
Yes, next Sunday.
Okay.
So I'm going to close with something that someone wrote. It's my partner. He listens to me running around the house saying things, and he hears all about the museum, blah, 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 blah. And he said all these wonderful things about Mel, and I didn't write them down. So this morning I said, could you like write some notes for me? And then he gave them to me. He said, well, you know, take what you want. But I thought I'm just going to like read it. Harry has vast knowledge of art. I learned so much from him, and he brings quite a depth. And I mean, we don't always agree on everything, but certainly it is something that we share. And this is what he wrote, so I'm going to close with this. A portrait is a mirror of the soul of an artist. Mel captures his sitters in the act of thinking as they look at Mel painting. There is a symbiotic relationship going on, as if the sitter looks at Mel and Mel studies the sitter. They both seem to be thinking of each other. It's a silent, two-way street of nonverbal communication. One is left asking, is it Mel's eye who's witnessing the sitter in his environment, or is it the sitter who witnesses Mel as an act of self-recognition as an artist? As all can see, Mel's humanism, deeply felt love of humanity as represented in individuals. There is a truth beyond aesthetics that speaks to moral conscience that Mel captures through realism, and best described by the Russian poet Boris Pasternak about literature. It can be equally applied to Mel's art. A book is a squarish chuck of hot, smoking conscience. I think this sums up the art of Mell Leipzig. Thank you for everything.
I moved to this city, when my daughter was born. And I can't believe it, my daughter is about to be 50. So I moved here in 1970. And I owe to this city, to my wife, who's not here, the fact that I'm an artist. Because I found there were too many influences in New York when I lived in New York. I mean, I just told that to a friend of mine, that, you know, you went to the gallery, you go to the openings every week, everybody's there, you know who everybody is, they come to your house, everybody has an opinion on your art. You know, it just didn't really work out. So by chance, I was hired by Sam Willard, who was the best chairman that Mercer County ever had, to teach in Trenton, and then in 1968, and that was the year I got married. And my wife made it possible for me to paint, excuse me. But painters are very difficult, because the truth of the matter is, you can't be a painter if you're not obsessive about it. I have to paint every day. You know, I'm 84 now, you know, and it just brings you alive. I think everybody should do something creative. Don't think about getting famous or anything. All that crap is bullshit. You know, you just do it. Just do it. Work on a garden. Cook. You know, anything, but you should do something creative. Because work is actually a very high form of pleasure. It is. And so, you know, I mean, I'm not great on taking vacations. It's true I go to Cape Cod, but I don't go there for vacation. I paint. My children come up and visit me, and they go to the beach. I hate the beach. I hate the sun, I hate the water, and I hate the sand. It's awful. But, you know, I just paint. And I think, by the way, that you should always do something that you love. And I was very lucky because I had a partner, my wife, you know, who encouraged me. And that was very, because I had parents who, I'll tell you the truth, my parents didn't want me to be an artist. They didn't want me to marry who I married. They were mad about everything all the time. So, you know, I had to fight. But with my wife, I mean, it was easy. And I was given actually our dining room. People used to come to my house and say, "You let your husband paint there? Why is he painting in the cellar? You know, where he belongs," or something like that. But no, so I owe it to Mary Jo a lot. And I have very good children too, I must say. They're bossy as all hell, but they're very good. So, and I want to thank Joan. By the way, Joan curated this show, and I think this is one of the best shows of mine ever curated. She picked these paintings, and they hung the show, and they hung it really beautifully. I didn't hang it, you know. I mean, it was really just wonderfully done. And if you don't know Tom Malloy, because I'm going to have another show putting Tom at Tom Malloy was the type of person I couldn't meet in New York. I met him here. You know everybody here. You know, I mean, Trenton is both a big city and a small town. It's both urban and suburban. You know,
I apologize for arriving late.
That's okay, don't worry. But the thing is, I have a canal behind my house. I live 2 blocks away from a river. You know, what the heck? You know, in New York, you don't have that. And I remember when people, I'm carrying on too much, told me that, "Oh, you're moving to Trenton, it's dangerous to Trenton." That's not bullshit. They've never lived in New York. I was robbed in every house I had in New York. I mean, I tell this story over and over again. Some guy ran me into my apartment, into my house. I ran upstairs to run away from him. He says, "I'm going to hold you goddamn Irish bastard, and kill you." I'm thinking, oh my God, the guy's really crazy. So, you know, New York, you had bars on your windows, you had all sorts of things. You know, and you only got a television that you knew was going to be robbed. Nobody robs paintings, by the way. They just rob TV sets and don't rob computers. But I really love Trenton. And I once almost thought that I had to move because, you know, the taxes are too high in the state, death taxes. But when I told my son, I told my son he should do what he loves. He took my advice very far. He became a professional tattoo artist, but he lives in upper New York State, and he said, "You can't move out of that house. I was born there." So, you know, this is a wonderful city, let me tell you. What? No, I wouldn't. I hate needles. I don't even like my blood taken. No, I wouldn't have a tattoo, but I don't have any paintings of my children. Oh, there's a painting of my daughter and my son-in-law inside there. But and Joan picked that. But I just love this, and I love the people I've met here. And I can only pay people I like, to say the truth. And artists whom I like, you know, I have to like their work. So, and by the way, realism, I'm not here to push realism. It's just a style. You should, if you're a painter, you should paint any way you goddamn please. You don't listen to your teachers. They'll often try to force their way of painting down your throat. Don't listen to anybody. There's an inner thing inside you. I think it's God, but it's instinct, and that tells you how you want to paint. I like painting people. I can't paint a room, but I don't like just a person. I want to paint the background too. So that's me. But I'm not saying that's everybody. You know, everybody has their own way, and I think artists are extremely lucky. You know, I don't wake up in the morning and wondering, what am I going to do today? You know, do I want to go to Cancun? You know, or something like that. You know, I just want to paint. That's all. You know, and I'm 84, and I'll say this again and again. I did a painting of some basketball players once, and I did a painting of the guy who ran the sports thing at Mercer, there is a similarity between sports, I think, and art. Because, you know, basically, people get so passionate about it, and what is it? It's not food, you know, it's not clothing. But the other thing is this, if I played basketball at my age, I'd be dead. I can paint, you know, until I'm 100, if I reach 100. That's all.
Thank you, Mel. And I just want to mention, the painting that Mel's working on is upstairs. You haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm painting Joan and Carol and Caroline and Jimmy.
And the vase.
And the vase, that's the vase.
Have you seen it? So stop upstairs.
By
and see
the
if
way,
have
if you wanted to know something about Trenton too, Trenton was, it might even still be in a sense, the second most important center of ceramics in the world, after Liverpool and England. I mean, you know, it's got a bad rep, a very bad rep. It's a wonderful place to live.
Thank you for everything. Thank you.